Syracuse basketball may just have a new number one transfer portal target.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, Syracuse basketball has a new number one transfer portal target, and that is Ken Evans Jr. from Jackson State. We're going to break down who is Ken Evans, what can he do, and what does the guard rotation look like if he were to commit to Syracuse? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, just as a general reminder before we get into Ken Evans Jr. from Jackson State, there are 3 open scholarship spots available on Syracuse basketball's roster right now. They have 10 players on the team, and you're allowed 13 scholarships according to NCAA regulations. And we've gone over, especially on yesterday's podcast, what Syracuse still needs in the transfer portal: another scoring guard, a big man, and a three-point specialist. Well, this guy that we're about to talk about, he can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So with Ken Evans Jr., he wasn't exactly on the radar for Syracuse, at least publicly. I hadn't seen anything relating to him in Syracuse until yesterday when I saw that Eddie Lampkin posted something about him on his Instagram story or whatever. And we know these days with social media. And then, of course, Evans then follows a few Syracuse people. He followed Dan Engelstad, I believe, the new assistant coach for the Orange. So then there was an article that came out, of course, directly after I released yesterday's podcast where I briefly spoke about Ken Evans Jr. And it was Tony Liebert from SI.com. And he said, quote, "The Gophers," referring to Minnesota, "have contacted Evans, but schools like St. John's, Syracuse, and West Virginia are also interested." That just means Syracuse has expressed interest, and now it's public information. Now, I do want to make an important note with that, which is that St. John's is also considered the front runner for Kadari Richmond, according to Jeff Goodman. If Richmond were to go to St. John's, that could possibly leave the door open for Ken Evans Jr. to come to Syracuse. And, well, of course, if Richmond doesn't go to St. John's, then Kev Evans Jr. probably becomes priority number 1 for Rick Pitino's squad. Now, another thing is that people will say, they got outbid for Dakota Leffew. How has Syracuse got the NIL money for a guy like Ken Evans Jr., who was the SWAC Player of the Year, a 4-star transfer, higher rated than Dakota Leffew? How do they have the NIL money for him? They couldn't do it for Leffew. My answer is pretty simple. Perhaps they're going after someone else. That's the flip side. Maybe they do have enough. They did have enough money for Dakota Leffew, but they didn't want to spend it all on him. They wanted to get someone who they perceived was better. So they were not willing to meet the asking price that Georgia got. And again, I don't know the figure that Dakota Leffew was asking for. That's maybe what happened. That could be what happened. But anyways, Ken Evans Jr. was the SWAC Player of the Year last season. He is a 6'5" combo guard, 4-star transfer on On3 and on 24/7 Sports. And when I checked on Rivals, they had him as a top 40 overall transfer in the class. The other 2 sites had him in the 100 range. So Rivals is a lot higher on Ken Evans Jr. And Evans has 1 year left of eligibility. So he would play for Syracuse for 1 year, and go pro or do whatever after that. At Jackson State, which is where he's coming from, he averaged 19 points per game and was nearly 40% from the three-point line last season. So, as I alluded to off the top, you're killing two birds with one stone. With a guy like Ken Evans, you can get a guy who can score as a combo guard and someone who can shoot, because they need both of those right now, Syracuse does. He also averaged 5 rebounds a game and 3 assists per game, about 80% from the free throw line, just a shade under. And this stuck out to me. Ken Evans Jr. played 36 minutes a night for Jackson State last season, so that's a lot of minutes. Not saying if he were to come to Syracuse, he would play that, but certainly someone who is capable of playing extended minutes for a team. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking. Ken Evans Jr. from Jackson State, the SWAC conference means nothing, right? He averaged 19 points, but who cares? It's the SWAC. We're not one of the big-time conferences in college basketball. I know. I agree with you on that. So, as I like to do with any transfer portal, commit, rumor, etc., I like to look to see how they did against top competition in the country, or at least, Power 5 schools, or as we'll see, or as I'll tell you, schools that maybe aren't Power 5, but we all know are premier programs. And I like to see how they do because it kind of gives you an idea of what this player is, right? So I did the homework for you. Ken Evans Jr. averaged 19 points per game in 6 games this past season against some of the top teams or in top conferences in the country. 19 per game. So no dip in his scoring. None. Those 6 teams were Memphis, Missouri, Georgetown, they still suck, Houston, Gonzaga, and Northwestern. So you got a mix of teams there. Some of them are elite, some of them aren't very good, but the point being is that those are all signature programs, or at the very least in the Power 5. And he averaged 19 points per game against those teams. So Ken Evans Jr., a 6'5", 4-star transfer on On3, 24/7 Sports, and Rivals, which has him in the top 40, is certainly capable, I believe, in making the leap from the SWAC to the Power 5. Now, coming up, we've kind of touched briefly on, what Ken Evans' numbers were last season, but what can he add to Syracuse if he were to commit? I was once trying to buy a last-minute ticket for a New York Mets game last year, and it was frustrating. I couldn't see the view from my seat, and the deals weren't that good at all. That's why I now use Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, and one game that I'm thinking about attending is Mets-Marlins down in Miami on May 19th. I can get in for as little as $5. I just went to the Gametime app. I searched up Mets tickets, and the deal popped up right away. You can do the same with any team of your choosing, including the Syracuse Mets. That's right. It's so easy to find. Syracuse is at home on May 14th, and you can get in for as little as $5. You get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And hey, Syracuse football fans, I know there's a lot of optimism out there. I know I only have them at 8-4, but some of you guys have them winning 10+ games. And if you're in that crowd, I highly suggest taking the Orange to win the ACC on FanDuel right now at plus 4,500, because you might as well take the shot if you already have Syracuse in the double-digit win category. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we're going over Syracuse's potential new number one transfer portal target, of course, Syracuse Basketball, Ken Evans Jr. out of Jackson State. We've gone over that he averaged 19 points per game last season and against some of the top competition in the country or schools in top conferences. The scoring average did not dip. He's a 6'5" combo guard, 4-star transfer across the board, someone who Syracuse could really, really use. Just saying, they could really use him. He has been connected to the Orange. Now, what can he do if he were to commit? He can provide a lot of different things. First and foremost, he is a great passer. Last year at Jackson State, he had an 18% assist rate. And what that does is give Syracuse at least 4 solid passers, or better than solid passers, on the team. They would have 4 of them if he were to commit. And those guys would be Evans, Jaquan Carlos, Eddie Lampkin, and Chance Westry. 4 guys already. Talk about depth here. Of course, Evans can also provide not just three-point shooting, right? He shot nearly 40% from 3 this past season, but he can really stretch the floor because he can pull up from 25-plus feet, deep range, as they like to call it. He made 15 three-pointers last year, more than 25 feet. 15. What this does is it forces opponents to have to step up on you. They can't just be like, oh yeah, maybe he can shoot, but he doesn't have that quite of range. No. With a guy like Evans, you got to step up on him because he will pull up and he will make a shot from 25 plus feet. That spaces the floor. Something that Syracuse didn't really have last season aside from Chris Bell. Chris Bell was the only one on the team last year who can space the floor. And this would give Syracuse at least 2 snipers next year that will play substantial minutes. Pending Elijah Moore. Of course, he is a 4-star transfer coming in, or not 4-star transfer, 4-star recruit coming in out of high school. We don't know how much he is going to play next season, but he is billed up to be a sniper. This would be guaranteed 2 snipers on the team. 2. So he can pass and he can shoot from deep range. All right. The other thing that he can do is he can create his own shot off the dribble. This is important because it gives Syracuse at least 3 players on the roster who can do just that. JJ Starling, Evans, and Jair Davis can do that. And I guess Donnie Freeman too, but I haven't seen much with him being able to put the ball on the floor. Time will tell with Donnie Freeman, right? But regardless, you have at least 3 players you can bank in that can create their own shot. Last year, what did you have? 2? Or no, you did have 3 last year. I keep forgetting Quadir Copeland, but you had JJ Starling, Judah Mintz, and Quadir Copeland. You would still have 3 if you were to get Evans. So Evans last year was in the 70th percentile in scoring in isolation. That simply means he can create his own shot at a very, very high level. And of course, this was something that I didn't really do too much digging, but this is more like surface level number here. He averaged over 5 rebounds per game as a combo guard, and I wouldn't expect him to average that much in ACC play, but he can certainly help rebounding as a 6'5" combo guard. He's got some length as well. Syracuse has not been a very good rebounding team in recent years. I believe Evans would be able to help with that. So, what can he do, right? What can Ken Evans Jr. do for Syracuse? He can pass. He can pull up from deep range. He can create his own shot. and he can rebound. Those four qualities make Ken Evans Jr. a top Syracuse transfer portal target, someone who can kill two birds with one stone and provide other things that the Orange lacked last year and still are missing here in the transfer portal. Now, coming up, what would his projected role be, and what would the guard rotation look like for Syracuse if Ken Evans were to commit to the Orange? All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot Panico machine, and there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and on today's episode, we are going over Syracuse Basketball's new potential number one transfer portal target in Ken Evans Jr. out of Jackson State. We've gone over what his numbers are. He averaged over 19 points per game. He did so against some of the top competition in the country, or schools at the very least in top conferences. We've also talked about four qualities that make him a solid addition, right? He can pass, he can pull up from deep range, he can create his own shot in isolation, and he averaged over 5 rebounds per game. So perhaps he can provide rebounding as a 6'5" combo guard as well. Now, it's time to project his current role. And when I look at Ken Evans Jr., I don't think he is a true point guard. So I don't know if he would start. I don't know. He would certainly get at least 25 minutes a night. But I don't know if he would start. Because right now, when I look at the guards, there's Jaquan Carlos, JJ Starling. If Ken Evans were to commit, him too. Chance Westry, Elijah Moore, and Kyle Cuff for a total of 6 guards on the roster. There's only one of them that is really a true point guard, and that is Jaquan Carlos. So you could start Jaquan Carlos and have Ken Evans Jr. be the 6th, 7th man. And he would be the 6th, 7th man along with probably Jair Davis, whoever doesn't start between him and Donnie Freeman. I think Donnie Freeman is going to get the nod. Time will tell on that, though. But that's what the 6th and 7th man probably looks like. Ken Evans Jr. and Jair Davis, first guys off the bench. That being said, you could also run a small lineup with that. The lineup combination that I have is you have Jaquan Carlos, JJ Starling, Ken Evans, Jair Davis / Chris Bell, and Donnie Freeman at the 5. You could do a potential lineup where you have 5, or you go small. That's really what it is. You can go small with it. He's not really a true point guard. That's just the reality of it. He is a combo guard that can score, and Syracuse needs that. They missed out on Dakota Leffew, who would have done just that. I got to be honest with you guys, Ken Evans Jr. is ranked higher across the board. He's ranked higher in the transfer portal rankings. You can take him how you will, for what it's worth, whatever it is, but he's ranked higher. That doesn't mean he's guaranteed to start if he were to come to Syracuse. Now, I know you guys might be thinking, if he's not guaranteed to start, why would he come here? Well, perhaps it's a good fit for him. I think it would be a good fit for him because Syracuse needs another shooter. He can shoot. He can pass. He can do a lot of different things. So even if he weren't to be the starter, he could finish games because he's a good player. He could still finish games. I haven't even touched on maybe what Syracuse can offer in NIL to him because we don't know. NIL is a big mystery, and I try not to get too much into, what this player wants, what that player wants. I try to stay away from it as much as I can. But we all have to acknowledge that, money talks. So even if he's not guaranteed to start, if you offer the most money, maybe he would come anyway. Maybe he would. That's how I really see it with Ken Evans Jr. if he were to commit to Syracuse. You have 6 guards on the roster, and he wouldn't be guaranteed to start. I think J.J. Starling's role is safe and secure as the starting 2 guard for next year. I don't think anyone else would start other than Jaquan Carlos or Ken Evans if he were to commit. I think Ken Evans is the better player, but Jaquan Carlos is that true floor general and can distribute the ball even better than how I mentioned. So the way I see the starting lineup, if Ken Evans Jr. were to commit to Syracuse, I would still start Jaquan Carlos. I would have J.J. Starling at the 2. I would have Chris Bell at the 3, Donnie Freeman at the 4, Eddie Lampkin at the 5, and your 6th, 7th men are Ken Evans and Jair Davis. So really good 1-2 punch off the bench right there. First guys off. Naheem McLeod as the backup center. Chance Westry as a wild card play. I've beaten it to death here. It's been basically, I'm beating a dead horse here with this one with Chance Westry. You get another combo guard. It's more insurance on Westry. You don't have to rely on him as much being a big contributor. Whatever you get from him is a bonus. That's how I see it. So, Ken Evans Jr. is a potential target for the Orange. There was a report that came out that Syracuse has expressed interest from Tony Liebert from SI.com. Again, I'll read you the quote. The Gophers have contacted Evans, but schools like St. John's, Syracuse, and West Virginia are also interested. This is the first time that I have known that Syracuse has publicly reached out to this player. I noted off the top, I'm going to repeat it. St. John's is the favorite for Kadari Richmond. If St. John's were to get Kadari Richmond, then the door is open really for Ken Evans Jr. But if they don't get Kadari Richmond, Ken Evans Jr. probably, maybe St. John's. At the very least, St. John's would then become in play. I wouldn't say he automatically goes there. That makes sense. That makes sense. I don't think it's guaranteed regardless, but I don't see St. John's walking away with both Ken Evans Jr. and Kadari Richmond when they are the same position. They are both combo guards. Richmond's more proven at the Power 5 level. So maybe they go after him. I don't know. It's very interesting, this transfer portal, because once you think they're out of it, they're not. They shift their focus away from Dakota Leffew. Now there's new targets on the board. Kadari Richmond's there. Ken Evans Jr.'s there. I see another guy from, Colgate from the Patriot League is out there too. Plenty of stuff to monitor here on the Locked On Syracuse podcast, and I have you covered with all the transfer portal latest. So, with that being said, if you like this video, click that like button. If you really like it, subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And folks, let's all breathe. Let's all relax. I truly don't think that the Orange are done. I really don't. Just because they missed out on Dakota Leffew, I don't think they're done. Have a little bit of faith. One final reminder, players have until May 1st to enter their names in the transfer portal, okay? May 1st, which is on Wednesday, they have to enter the portal by May 1st. They have to. All right? Just so we're all clear. But now that you got it in your head, May 1st, they don't have to commit by May 1st. You really just have to commit before the start of fall classes, to be completely honest. I think that's how it really is. All right? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Everyone, take care.